Life processes. In this video, we will cover life processes, full chapter concept explanation, diagrams, structure and functioning of different systems, important questions, experiments, and multiple choice questions to test your knowledge. All in one shot. Shall we start? In this video, we will discuss the different life processes. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. We have been studying about living and non-living things. With the help of certain characteristics, we distinguish between living and non-living things. A dog wagging its tail, an ant crawling. Are these living things? Yes, they are, because they are moving. So movement is a sign of living. You sow a seed in soil. After few weeks, you find a plantlet growing. On basing the character growth, we say the plant is a living thing. So in the above cases, movement and growth are the indicators of life. But sometimes we find living things without any movement. Examples, this sleeping dog and this cactus. At this instance, we do not notice neither movement nor growth in the above two. It doesn't mean that they are not living. They have movements that are not visible to our naked eyes. If movements are there, where are they? We all know that living things are made up of organs, made up of tissues, finally cells. Cells are made up of molecules. In a living cell, there is a continuous movement of molecules. These movements are essential for repair and maintenance processes. These repair and maintenance processes are called life processes. Now let us see, what are life processes? Life processes importance. All living things are made up of cells. Cells are made up of molecules. For a cell to be alive, it has to be repaired and maintained all the time. Repair and maintenance of a cell needs a continuous supply of new molecules and disposal of unwanted molecules. This task is achieved by a set of processes called life processes. Nutrition is a life process in which food is obtained by the organism and converted to simpler molecules, that is, nutrients. These are supplied to the cells by the transport system. Respiration is a life process in which oxygen is obtained by the organism and supplied to the cells by the transport system. Cells utilize some of these nutrients and oxygen to produce energy. Some nutrients are used for synthesis of new materials for growth and repair. While carrying out the above activities, cells generate certain molecules which are toxic and to be excreted out of the body. Excretion is the life process in which living organisms excrete the toxic materials out of the cells by the help of transport system. Transportation is the life process that helps in the transport of materials in nutrition, respiration, and excretion. So nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion are the four life processes essential for an organism to live. Nutrition in plants. Nutrition in plants is autotrophic. Do you know the meaning of autotrophic? Auto means self. Trophic means feeding. Hence, autotrophic means self-feeding. Plants prepare their food by a process called photosynthesis. Define photosynthesis. Mention the raw materials required for photosynthesis. Plants use sunlight to synthesize food from simple inorganic materials like carbon dioxide and water with the help of chloroplast. This process is called photosynthesis. Where this photosynthesis does takes place exactly? Name the green dot-like structures in some cells observed by a student when a leaf peel was viewed under a microscope. What is the green color due to? If we see the cross section of a leaf, we will find the cells with green colored structures called chloroplasts. This is the exact site where photosynthesis takes place. Chloroplasts are green in color because they contain a green color pigment called chlorophyll. How do plants get their raw materials for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide enters the leaf through small pores called stomata present on the underside of the leaf. Water is absorbed from the soil by the roots. The exposure of leaf surface to the sun enables it to get enough sunlight for photosynthesis. What are stomata? How do they help the plant? Stomata are the tiny pores present on the surface of the leaves. These pores helps the plant by allowing the carbon dioxide into the cells of the leaf. Stomata also helps in the process of transpiration. Why do plants close and open stomata? Since large amounts of water is lost through these stomata during transpiration, the plant closes these pores. But the stomata gets opened when there is a need of carbon dioxide. What mechanism helps the stomata to get closed and opened? Each stomata pore is surrounded by a pair of guard cells. The opening and closing of the pore is a function of the guard cells. The guard cells swell when water flows into them, causing the stomata pore to open. Similarly, the pore closes if the guard cells shrink. How can we prove that chlorophyll is important for photosynthesis? With the help of a variegated leaf experiment, we can prove that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. To do this experiment, we need a potted plant with variegated leaves. We have to keep the plant in dark for 3 days. Do you know why? So that all the starch present in the plant gets used up. Now, place this plant in sunlight for about 6 hours. Now, detach a leaf from the plant and mark the green areas of it. Now, trace the leaf and its green borders on a butter paper. Next, place the leaf in boiling water for a few minutes. Take it out and place it in a beaker containing alcohol. Now place the beaker with alcohol into a water bath. Heat the setup till the alcohol begins to boil. The leaf loses its color. The alcohol turns into green color. Now take the leaf out and dip it in a dilute iodine solution for few minutes. Take out the leaf and rinse it. Observe the blue colored part of the leaf and compare it with the paper tracing. Here we observe that starch is prepared only in the green color parts of the leaf. Hence, we proved that chlorophyll is important for photosynthesis. How can we prove that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis? Write an experiment to show that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. We can prove that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis by a simple experiment. To do this experiment, we need 2 healthy potted plants of same size. We have to keep them in a dark room for 3 days to destarch them. Place the plants on glass plates or smooth finished tiles. Place a watch glass containing potassium hydroxide by the side of one of the plant. Cover both the plants with separate bell jars. Why to place the plants on glass plates? Because we want the plant to be in an airtight environment. So, we have to take a smooth surface at the bottom and the bell jar at the top to keep it airtight. Even then, some air can enter inside through the edges. How do we stop it? That is why we have to apply Vaseline or grease at the edges to prevent the entry of air. But still there is some air in the bell jar. That means there is some carbon dioxide inside. How do we remove it? That is why we have placed a watch glass with potassium hydroxide, which will absorb the carbon dioxide present in the jar. So now our setup is ready. One plant without CO2 and another plant with some CO2. Let the plants stand in sunlight for 2 hours. Now pluck a leaf from each plant and test them for the presence of starch. Do both the leaves show the presence of same amount of starch? No. The plant with KOH plate shows no sign of starch. But the plant without potassium hydroxide could prepare some starch. By this experiment, we can conclude that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. Now let's see another important question. What are the 3 important steps involved in photosynthesis? Let us see the steps involved in it. Step 1. Chlorophyll molecule gets activated by the sunlight. Step 2. Activated chlorophyll splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Step 3. Hydrogen generated in step 2 are utilized to reduce the carbon dioxide to glucose. These steps do not take place immediately one after the other because certain plants take carbon dioxide during night time. Plants also need nitrogen to make proteins to build up their bodies. They get it from the soil in the form of nitrates and nitrites. Atmospheric nitrogen is made into nitrites and nitrates by the soil bacteria. Now let us see nutrition in human beings under the topic heterotrophic nutrition. Food enters our body through mouth and travels through a long canal which ends at anus. This canal is called alimentary canal. In the mouth, the food is ground to a paste by teeth and saliva. Saliva is a watery fluid not only makes the food soft and wet, it also has an enzyme called salivary amylase which partially digests the sugars. Now, the food has to reach the stomach through a pipe called esophagus. The muscles of the esophagus contract rhythmically to move the food through it into the stomach. Stomach is a large muscular hollow organ in which the food is thoroughly mixed with more digestive juices secreted by gastric glands present in the walls of the stomach. These juices include 1. Pepsin, a protein digesting enzyme. 2. Hydrochloric acid, to provide acidic medium for the proper action of pepsin. And 3. Mucus, to prevent the damage of stomach wall by the action of HCl. At the end of the stomach, a sphincter muscle slowly releases the food into the small intestine, the longest part of the alimentary canal, which is highly coiled to get accommodated in small space. It receives pancreatic juice from the pancreas, intestinal juices from the glands in the intestines, and bile juice from the liver. Pancreatic juice and intestinal juices contain enzymes like trypsin, lipase, pancreatic amylase, peptidases, and nucleases. Bile does 2 things. 1. It breaks the fats into smaller droplets, providing more surface area for the quick action of enzymes. 2. Bile makes the intestinal pH too alkaline, so by that the digestion of fats and carbohydrates is facilitated. These enzymes finally make the carbohydrates to sugars, proteins to amino acids, and fats to fatty acids and glycerol. The inner lining of the small intestine has finger-like projections called villi, where the nutrients derived in digestion are absorbed into the bloodstream. The unabsorbed food is sent into a large intestine where water is absorbed and the rest is excreted out through anus. Let us see how to draw the diagram of human digestive system in easy steps. Let us see the structure and functioning of different parts of human digestive system. Mouth. Our digestive system begins with mouth. Teeth, tongue, and salivary glands help in chewing and swallowing of food. Salivary glands. When we eat something, salivary glands secrete a fluid called saliva. It makes the food soft and also digests the food partially with the help of some enzymes. The saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase that breaks down starch, which is a complex molecule, to give sugar. Tongue. The tongue helps in mixing the food thoroughly with saliva. Esophagus. Food that is chewed well is passed into the stomach through a long pipe called esophagus. The lining of esophagus has muscles that contract rhythmically in order to push the food forward. The rhythmic movements of the muscles of esophagus are called peristaltic movements. Stomach. The stomach is a large organ which expands when food enters into it. The muscular walls of the stomach helps in mixing the food thoroughly with more digestive juices. The gastric glands present in the wall of the stomach release hydrochloric acid, a protein digesting enzyme called pepsin, and mucus. The hydrochloric acid creates an acidic medium which facilitates the action of the enzyme pepsin. This acid also kills the microbes that enter our stomach along with food. The mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of the acid under normal conditions. The food that is churned and partly digested in the stomach is released into the small intestine in small amounts. This release is controlled by a sphincter muscle. Liver. Liver secretes bile juice. It alkalizes the food in the small intestine. It also emulsifies the fats and helps in digestion of fats. Pancreas. Pancreas secretes pancreatic juice. It has different enzymes like trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, and amylase, etc. These hormones help in the complete digestion. Small intestine. Small intestine. This is the longest part of the alimentary canal, which is fitted into a compact space because of extensive coiling. The small intestine is the site of the complete digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The secretions of liver and pancreas and intestinal wall help to complete the digestion. The walls of the small intestine contains glands which secrete intestinal juice. The enzymes present in the intestinal juice convert the proteins to amino acids, complex carbohydrates into glucose, and fats into fatty acids and glycerol. The digested food is absorbed by the walls of the intestine. The inner lining of the small intestine has numerous finger-like projections called villi, which increase the surface area for absorption. The villi are richly supplied with blood vessels, which take the absorbed food to each and every cell of the body. Large intestine. The unabsorbed food is sent into the large intestine, where more villi absorb water from this material. The waste is removed from the body through the anus. The anus is controlled by anal sphincter. These are the different parts of the human digestive system. Now, let us try to answer some important MCQs from nutrition. Which of the following is not an autotroph? A. Mint. B. Grass. C. Cuscuta. D. Ferns. What fills in these empty boxes? A. 6, 12, 24, 6. B. 8, 4, 2, 12. C. 6, 12, 6, 12. D. 6, 12, 6, 2. In photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is reduced to A. Carbon monoxide, B. Carbonate, C. Carbohydrate, D. Carboxylic acid. Which of the following give dark blue color with iodine? A. Glucose, B. Starch, C. Protein, D. Fat. Dash is most essential element for the synthesis of proteins. A. Magnesium. B. Phosphorus. C. Nitrogen. D. Iron. Peristaltic movements are observed in A. Esophagus. B. Small intestine. C. Large intestine. D. All the above. Gastric glands are located in the A. Walls of intestine. B. Walls of stomach. C. Walls of liver. D. Under the tongue. Dash is the longest part of the alimentary canal. A. Stomach. B. Small intestine. C. Large intestine. D. Esophagus. Which of the following animal has a shorter small intestine? A. Cow. B. Elephant. C. Rhino. D. Leopard. Which of the following enzyme needs acidic medium to work? A. Trypsin. B. Pepsin. C. Lipase. D. Amylase. Which of the following pair works best for complete digestion of fats? A. Saliva and lipase. B. Gastric juice and lipase. C. Bile juice and lipase. D. Pancreatic juice and lipase. Which of the following does not take place during photosynthesis? A. Absorption of light. B. Conversion of chemical energy to heat. C. Reduction of carbon dioxide. D. Release of oxygen. Find the answer for the last question and post it in the comment section. We will move to the next topic, respiration. First, let us see cellular respiration. Nutrition provides us with nutrients like glucose. Respiration helps in the release of energy from glucose. Some organisms need oxygen to do this job. In that case, it is called aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, one glucose molecule with 6 carbons splits into 2 molecules of pyruvate containing each 3 carbons. This happens in the cytoplasm of the cell. These pyruvic acid molecules enters mitochondria and turns to carbon dioxide and water by releasing the energy in the form of ATP. ATPs fuel the different endothermic reactions that takes place inside these cells. Respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen, which is called as anaerobic respiration. When we do vigorous exercise, our muscle cells get deprived of oxygen. In such cases, glucose is converted to pyruvate, and which in turn gives out lactic acid and energy. In case of yeast, an anaerobic organism, glucose is converted to pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid releases energy by converting into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process is called fermentation. The energy released in aerobic respiration is greater when compared with the anaerobic respiration. But aerobic respiration requires a continuous supply of oxygen. Plants have stomata to exchange the gases with the atmosphere, whereas animals have special respiratory organs to get the oxygen from their surroundings. Now let us see how the breathing takes place in human beings. Breathing is an essential part of respiration. It allows the organisms to obtain the oxygen from the surroundings. Human beings have a well-developed respiratory system to absorb the oxygen from the atmosphere. Let's see the structural and functional details of each part of it. Human respiratory system begins with a pair of nostrils through which air enters our body. Nostrils are lined by fine hairs to filter the dust that enters in. Nostrils leads to nasal passage, which is wet to humidify the air. From here, the air passes through the throat into the lungs. Throat is supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings to prevent it from collapsing. The windpipe branches into bronchi, bronchioles, and finally attaches to small balloon-like structures called alveoli. The walls of the alveoli are richly supplied with blood vessels, and this is the exact site where the exchange of gases takes place in your lungs. The blood brings carbon dioxide from the rest of the body for release into the alveoli. The air in the alveoli is rich in oxygen. Now the exchange of gases takes place between alveoli and blood by simple diffusion. A red-colored pigment called hemoglobin binds the oxygen and transports it. Carbon dioxide is generally dissolved in the blood during transport. Let us see how to draw the diagram of human respiratory system in easy steps. Now let us see the structure and functioning of different parts of human respiratory system. Nostrils. They are the passages through which the air enters into respiratory system. Nostrils are lined by fine hairs that filter the dust. Nasal passage. Nostrils enters into passage called nasal passage. This passage is also lined by mucus that helps in absorbing the dust and makes the air moist. Pharynx. Next, the air enters the pharynx. This is a common passage of air and food. Larynx. It is the starting part of trachea. It has vocal cords in it and helps in producing sounds. Trachea. It is a long tube through which air enters the lungs. It is supported by rings of cartilage. These rings ensure that the air passage does not collapse. Bronchi. Trachea divides into two branches called bronchi. Bronchioles. Bronchi further divides into still smaller branches called bronchioles. Alveoli. Within the lungs, the bronchioles finally terminate in balloon-like structure called alveoli. The alveoli provide a surface where the exchange of gases can take place. The walls of the alveoli contain an extensive network of blood vessels. Ribs. They protect the lungs from shock and injury. They also help in the contraction and relaxation of lungs. Diaphragm. It also helps in the contraction and relaxation of lungs. Now, let us try to answer some important MCQs from respiration. In the first step of glucose breakdown, 6-carbon glucose molecule breaks down into a 3-carbon molecule called A. Ethanol, B. Pyruvate, C. Citrate, D. Lactic acid. Which of the following process does not require oxygen? A. Photosynthesis, B. Glycolysis, C. Fermentation, D. All the above. The number of phosphates present in ATP molecule. A. 1, B. 2, C. 3, D. 4. Which of the following structures prevents the collapse of air passage? A. Rings of cartilage, B. Mucus, C. Fine hairs, D. Ribs. Which of the following parts helps the lungs to expand and contract? A. Nostrils and nasal passages. B. Pharynx and larynx. C. Windpipe and food pipe. D. Ribs and diaphragm. Which of the following event takes place in the alveoli? A. Exchange of gases. B. Exchange of nutrients. C. Exchange of water. D. All the above. Which of the following path is correct? A. Nostrils, trachea, alveoli, bronchi. B. Alveoli, trachea, bronchi, nostrils. C. Bronchi, trachea, nostrils, alveoli. D. Alveoli, bronchi, trachea, nostrils. Which of the following organism has higher rate of breathing? A. Man. B. Dog. C. Snake. D. Fish. During the breath cycle, some amount of air remains in the lungs. It is called A. Remaining volume of air. B. Balance volume of air. C. Resting volume of air. D. Residual volume of air. The terminal phosphate of ATP is broken using dash to release energy. A. Oxygen. B. Sunlight. C. Water. D. Carbon dioxide. In yeast, the release of energy during cellular respiration takes place in A. Mitochondria. B. Cytoplasm. C. Nucleus. D. Golgi apparatus. Which of the following gas is more soluble in water? A. Carbon dioxide. B. Oxygen. C. A and B are equally soluble. Find the answer for the last question and post it in the comment section. Now let us move to the next topic, transportation. Transportation in human beings. Transportation is the life process that helps in the transport of materials in nutrition, respiration, and excretion. Heart, blood vessels, and blood are the parts of our transport system. How an electric pump pushes the water in the pipes, just in the similar way, heart pumps blood in the blood vessels to different parts of our body. Heart is a muscular, four-chambered organ which is in the size of our fist. It has to do two different jobs. 1. It has to collect the deoxygenated blood from the body parts and send it to lungs. This is done by the right side chambers, right atrium and right ventricle of the heart. 2. It has to collect the oxygenated blood from lungs and supply it to the body parts. This is achieved by the left side chambers of the heart. But it does both the jobs simultaneously. Let's see how it does in action. The left atrium and the right atrium relaxes. Left atrium collects the blood from lungs. Right atrium gets the deoxygenated blood from the body. As they contract, the left ventricle and right ventricle expands so that the blood is transferred to them. When the left ventricle contracts in its turn, the blood is pumped out to the body. The right ventricle contracts in its turn, pumps the blood to the lungs for oxygenation. In higher animals like birds and mammals, the four-chambered heart keeps the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood separate. The circulation of blood through the heart takes place twice, once between the heart and lungs and the second time between heart and body parts. Hence, this circulation is called double circulation. Now let us know about human blood, blood vessels and lymph. The blood vessels present in our body are arteries, veins and capillaries. Arteries are the vessels that have thick and elastic walls to resist pressure exerted by the heart. They carry the oxygenated blood from heart to various parts of the body. Veins. They collect the deoxygenated blood from various parts of the body and brings it to the heart. They do not need thick walls because the blood is not under pressure, but they have valves to control the flow of blood in one direction. The arteries branch into thin vessels called capillaries to reach the cells for the supply of materials. These capillaries rejoin at the other end to form veins. If the blood vessels are cut at any point by incident, then there will be leakage and loss of blood from the body. To prevent this, platelets present in the blood migrate to site of leakage and plug it temporarily. Later, a series of events takes place and permanent clotting of blood takes place. Apart from blood, there is one more fluid involved in transportation, that is lymph. It is a colorless fluid similar to plasma of blood. It is formed by the plasma escaped from the capillaries into the intercellular spaces. This fluid is called lymph and it enters into lymphatic capillaries and joins with lymph vessels and finally opens into large veins. It does two major jobs. 1. Lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from intestine, and 2. Drain excess fluid from extracellular space back into the blood. Let us see how to draw the diagram of human heart in easy steps. Let us see the structure and functioning of different parts of the human heart. First, let us see the different chambers of the human heart. There are 4 chambers in the heart, 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. Let us begin with right auricle. This is the right upper chamber of our heart. It collects the deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body and pumps this blood into right ventricle. Right ventricle. This is the right bottom chamber of our heart. It pumps the deoxygenated blood to lungs for oxygenation. Left auricle. The oxygenated blood collected by the pulmonary veins is deposited in the left auricle. Left auricle is smaller than the right auricle. Left ventricle. It gets the oxygenated blood from the left auricle and pumps it into systemic aorta to supply it to the whole body. Now, let us see the different blood vessels that are connected to the heart. Inferior vena cava. It is also called as precaval vein. It collects the deoxygenated blood from lower parts of the body like hands and legs. Superior vena cava. It is also called as postcaval vein. It collects the deoxygenated blood from upper parts of the body like neck and head. Pulmonary veins. They collect the oxygenated blood from lungs and deposits it in the left auricle. Pulmonary arteries. A large pulmonary artery arises from the right ventricle. It branches into left and right pulmonary veins and enters left and right lungs. They carry deoxygenated blood from right ventricle to lungs. Systemic aorta. It is a large artery that originates at the left ventricle. It carries oxygenated blood from left ventricle to all parts of the body. We have seen the different blood vessels that are connected to the heart. Now let us see the different valves present in human heart. Tricuspid valve. The valve present between right auricle and right ventricle is the tricuspid valve. It regulates the flow of blood from right auricle to right ventricle. Bicuspid valve. The valve present between the left auricle and left ventricle is called bicuspid valve or mitral valve. Pulmonary valves. The valves present at the region of pulmonary aorta are called pulmonary valves. They control the blood flow from right ventricle to pulmonary aorta. Systemic valves. The valves present at the region of systemic aorta are called systemic valves. They control the flow of blood from left ventricle to systemic aorta. So, we have seen the different parts of human heart. Let us try to find out answer to certain questions. Is the thickness of the walls of the heart uniform throughout? No. The walls of the ventricles are thicker than the walls of the auricles. How many chambers are there in the heart? There are 4 chambers in the human heart. Are all the chambers of the heart are of same size? No. The chambers of the heart are of different sizes. The left ventricle is the largest chamber of the heart. Are all chambers of the heart are connected? No. Left and right auricles are separated by interauricular septum, and the left and right ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. How are the chambers of the heart are connected? The auricles and ventricles are connected by valves. Let us try to answer some important MCQs from transportation. Which of the following chambers of human heart has thin walls? A. Left ventricle. B. Right atrium. C. Left atrium. D. B and C. Which of the following animals has only two chambers in their heart? A. Dog. B. Whale. C. Shark. D. Snake. When the ventricles are contracted, the pressure in the blood vessels is about A. 120 mm of Hg, B. 80 mm of Hg, C. 140 mm of Hg, D. 60 mm of Hg. Which of the following is not a characteristic of artery? A. Presence of valves. B. Thick elastic walls. C. Divides into thin capillaries. D. All the above. Which of the following blood cells help in the process of clotting? A. Erythrocytes. B. Lymphocytes. C. Monocytes. D. Platelets. Which of the following is not a characteristic of lymph? A. Carries digested and absorbed fat. B. Drains excess fluid from extracellular space. C. Contains more protein compared to plasma. D. It is a colorless fluid. Soil is the nearest and richest source of dash for plants. A. Water. B. Nitrogen. C. Phosphorus. D. All the above. The loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is known as A. Respiration. B. Perspiration. C. Transpiration. D. Expiration. Transportation in plants takes place due to A. Root pressure. B. Energy from ATP. C. Transpiration. D. All the above. Which of the following is not carried by blood plasma? A. Oxygen. B. Carbon dioxide. C. Glucose. D. Nitrogenous waste. High blood pressure is also called as A. Diabetes. B. Hypertension. C. Anemia. D. Anxiety. Which of the following set is correct? A. Xylem, food, needs energy, upward and downward direction. B. Phloem, water, no need of energy, downward direction. C. Xylem, water, no need of energy, upward and downward direction. D. Phloem, food, needs energy, upward direction. Find the answer and post it in the comment section. Move on to the next topic, excretion. Let's see excretion in human beings. Cells, as a part of their activity, they produce nitrogenous compounds like urea and uric acid. These are toxic in nature and are to be excreted out from our body. Blood collects these compounds and carry them to the excretory system to filter them out. The human excretory system consists of a pair of kidneys, 2 ureters, an urinary bladder and urethra. Nephrons are the functional units of kidneys, which actually filters the blood. Each nephron consists of a cluster of capillaries and a tube with cup-shaped end called Bowman's capsule. Blood is filtered in this capsule, and toxic wastes like urea, uric acid, creatinine, along with water are separated. Certain useful materials like glucose, amino acids, and salts are also filtered, but reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. The water with toxic waste molecules collected in the kidney is called urine. It is sent to the urinary bladder through ureter. Once the bladder is full, it creates an urge to urinate. When we relax the bladder muscles to urinate, it passes out through urethra. And finally, we see transportation in plants. Plants have slow transport systems because of their low energy need. In plants, the materials are mainly transported in 2 pathways. 1. Food materials from the site of production to the site of storage, that is, from leaf to stem or root. This conductive tissue is called phloem. The transport of this soluble product of photosynthesis from the leaf to other parts is called translocation. The translocation of food and other substances take place in the sieve tubes with the help of adjacent companion cells both in upward and downward directions. The translocation in phloem is achieved by utilizing energy. Materials like sucrose is transferred in phloem tissue using energy from ATP. This increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water to move into it. This pressure moves the material in the phloem to tissues which have less pressure. This allows the phloem to move material according to the plant's needs. For example, in the spring, sugar stored in root or stem tissue would be transported to the buds which need energy to grow. 2. Water and minerals are conducted from root to other body parts through a specialized tissue called xylem. It consists of vessels and tracheids through which roots, stems, and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water-conducting channels. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil actively take up ions. This creates a difference in the concentration of these ions between the root and the soil. Water therefore moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference. The effect of root pressure in transport of water is more important at night. During the day, when the stomata are open, the transpiration pull becomes the major driving force in the movement of water in the xylem. Let us see how to draw the diagram of human excretory system in easy steps. Let us see the structure and functioning of different parts of the human excretory system. Kidneys. Humans have a pair of kidneys. They are in the shape of bean seeds. Right kidney is a bit lower than the position of the left kidney. The length of a kidney is 10 centimeters, width 5 to 6 centimeters, and thickness is about 4 centimeters. Its outer surface is convex in shape and the inner surface is concave. The center depression on the concave side of the kidney is called hilus. Dorsal aorta. This large artery brings oxygenated blood with impurities to kidneys. It divides into renal arteries near the kidneys. Renal artery. Oxygenated blood with nitrogenous wastes enter into the kidneys through these renal arteries. Renal arteries enter the kidney at the hilus region. Posterior vena cava. This is a large vein that collects the blood from kidneys and carries it to the heart. Renal vein. These veins collect the filtered blood and transports it into the posterior vena cava. Ureters. They begin from the hilus region and reaches the urinary bladder. They carry the urine formed in the kidney to the urinary bladder. The urine moves in the ureter with the help of peristaltic movements. Each ureter is about 30 cm long. Urinary bladder. This is a thin-walled bag-like structure. It can store up to 800 ml of urine. Urethra. This is a duct that passes the urine out. There is a sphincter muscle between urinary bladder and urethra. It controls the outflow of urine. It is 4 cm long in women and 20 cm long in males. In males, urethra is also called as urinogenital duct. Now, let us try to answer some important questions from the topic excretion. Which of the following metabolic waste is not removed or filtered by kidneys? A. CO2. B. Urea. C. Uric acid. D. All the above. Which of the following is the functional unit of kidney? A. Neuron. B. Villi. C. Nephron. D. Capillaries. Which of the following is not a part of nephron? A. Glomerulus. B. Branch of renal artery. C. Bronchiole. D. Bowman's capsule. The long tube that connects the kidney and the urinary bladder is A. Urethra. B. Nephron. C. Ureter. D. Collecting duct. The process of filtering the blood using an artificial kidney is called A. Endoscopy. B. ECG. C. Dialysis. D. Scanning. Normally, in a healthy adult, the initial filtrate in the kidneys is about dash in a day. A. 160 liter. B. B. 180 liter, C. 200 liter, D. None of the above. Which of the following pots are not used by plants to get rid of wastes? A. Phloem, B. Xylem, C. Old leaves, D. Roots. Find the answer for the last question and post it in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Please like the video. Please share this video with your friends. Please subscribe to Grade Booster channel. Press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Check the description to find links of other useful videos. Check the end screens for our new videos.